It still feels strange, putting it all into words. Like maybe if I write it down, it'll make more sense. But the truth is, I don't think it ever will. My name's Eric, and for the past 7 years, I thought I was living the American dream. Decent job in IT, house in the suburbs just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, a yellow lab named Max, and a wife I thought I'd grow old with, Jessica. We met at a mutual friend's wedding, hit it off over bad wine and better conversation. She was this mix of sweet and wild, the kind of girl who made you feel like every day was worth something. I fell fast. And hard. We got married 2 years after we met. Things were good, mostly. We had our fights, like any couple. But I never thought anything would shatter us. Jessica had a friend named Bree. The kind of friend you smile at through gritted teeth. Bree was the single, party-all-weekend type. She worked in real estate, made good money, and had zero filter. Every time they went out together, I'd get this knot in my stomach. Not because I didn't trust Jessica, not then, but because I didn't trust Bree. That night, the night everything started to unravel, was a Friday. Jessica said she and Bree were heading out for just a few drinks at a downtown club. I didn't argue. I told her to have fun, gave her a kiss on the cheek, and curled up with Max to watch a movie. She came back late. Like almost 4 a.m. late. Smelled like tequila and smoke. When I asked if everything was alright, she just smiled, said, "Yeah, of course. It was a fun night." I wanted to believe her. God, I really did. But something felt off. The next morning, Jessica was quieter than usual. She slept in late, sunglasses on in the kitchen like the sun was punishing her. I made coffee, tried to play it cool, but that knot in my gut hadn't gone away. "Rough night?" I asked casually, sliding her a mug. She nodded, barely lifting her head. "Bree got super drunk. It was a whole thing. No details, no laughter about the night like usual. Just tension. I didn't push it. I wanted to. But part of me was afraid of the answer I might get if I did. That whole day, she was distant. Checking her phone more than normal, stepping outside to take calls she didn't explain. Max kept staring at her, like he could feel it too. Dogs know. They always do. That night, after she went to bed early claiming she had a headache, I did something I hadn't done in years. I checked her phone. I hated myself for it. It felt dirty, like a betrayal. But my gut wouldn't shut up, and I needed to know. At first, nothing. Texts with Bree, a few selfies from the club, the usual. But then I found a thread with a number not saved in her contacts. Just a string of texts, starting around midnight the night before. Him. "You sure about this?" Her. "Don't ask. Just come to the back room." Him. "You're married." Her. "I know. Just one night. No strings." My hands went cold. I read those lines over and over, hoping there was some innocent explanation. There wasn't. The timestamp said 12:43 a.m. She was with someone, some guy, in a club bathroom or God knows where while I was home watching The Office reruns with Max asleep on my feet. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a drunken accident. It was a choice that I didn't sleep that night. Just sat on the couch in the dark, Max curled beside me, my thoughts racing. It was like my mind kept trying to find some loophole, some shred of doubt I could cling to, but there wasn't any. The words were right there in black and white. She cheated. Not because she got drunk and made a mistake, not because she was confused or hurting, but because she chose to. And the worst part? It wasn't even for love. It wasn't some long-lost ex or someone she had feelings for. It was just some guy at a club. A random. A hookup. That made it feel 1,000 times worse. The next morning, I was calm. Too calm. That kind of calm that comes from everything inside you going numb. Jessica came down wearing one of my old t-shirts like nothing happened, asking if I wanted eggs or waffles. Like we were just playing house again. I looked her dead in the eyes and asked, "Who was he?" She froze. A second passed. Then two. Then her whole face dropped like the blood just drained out of her body. "What are you talking about?" she said, but her voice cracked halfway through. "You know exactly what I'm talking about." She tried to deny it, at first. Tried to gaslight me. Said I was paranoid. Said maybe someone took her phone. That maybe it was Bree texting as a joke. But I'd seen the messages. I'd even taken screenshots. I showed her. Watched her crumble. That's when the tears came. That broken, panicked, guilt-soaked sobbing that would have shattered me if I didn't already feel hollow inside. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. "Then why did you invite him?" I asked. "Why tell him to meet you?" Silence. Then, finally, "I couldn't say no to Bree. She kept pushing me to loosen up. Said I never do anything wild anymore. So that was it. One night. One stupid, selfish decision. Because her friend told her it was okay, hearing her say it out loud. I couldn't say no to Bree. Lit something in me I didn't know was there. Rage, maybe. Or disgust. Or just the heartbreak boiling over. You cheated on your husband because your drunk friend told you to? I said, trying hard not to raise my voice. That's your excuse? Jessica just stood there shaking, hugging herself like that would hold her together. I wasn't thinking straight. I had too much to drink. Bree dared me in. Her voice cracked again. I didn't plan it, Eric. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. You told him to meet you. That's not a dare, Jess. That's not an accident. That's a choice. She dropped to the floor, crying into her hands, muttering apologies, saying she didn't mean to hurt me. But I couldn't listen anymore. I walked out the front door, still in my pajama pants, Max trailing behind me like he knew I needed space. I sat on the back porch for what felt like hours. Sunlight burned through the morning clouds, but I didn't feel a thing. I thought about everything. Our wedding. Our first Christmas in this house. The night we adopted Max. All of it replayed in my head, now smeared by what she did. When I finally came back in, she was still sitting on the kitchen floor, tear-streaked and puffy-eyed. I didn't say a word. Just walked upstairs, grabbed a blanket and pillow, and made a bed on the couch. That became the new routine. Separate rooms. Barely speaking. And when we did talk, it was all about, what now? She wanted to fix it. Go to therapy. Start over. But how do you fix something after trust is gone? I didn't have an answer then. But I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't going to be a doormat. Not for her. Not for anyone. The next week was like walking through smoke. I'd go to work, put on a mask, come home, and barely speak to her. Jessica tried. She cleaned the house like her life depended on it. Cooked dinner every night. Left notes on the counter. I love you. Please talk to me. I made a mistake. But the truth is, I wasn't ready to talk. Not yet. Not when every time I looked at her, all I saw was that message thread. Just one night. No strings. Like I was some inconvenience she could put on a shelf while she had her little thrill. Eventually, I agreed to one conversation. Just one. I told her I needed the full truth. Everything. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. I didn't touch the coffee she poured for me. She admitted to meeting the guy at the bar. Said Bree started flirting with 2 random guys and one of them, Derek, ended up spending most of the night talking to her instead. She swore it started as innocent. Just drinks. Just dancing. Then Bree went off with her guy. Disappeared. And Derek leaned in and said, "You're way too hot to be married." She said she laughed it off at first. Told him she was happily married. But he didn't let up. Bought her another drink. Said things that made her feel noticed. I don't know what came over me, she said, crying again. I felt like I hadn't been seen in months. Like I was just your wife, not me anymore. That hurt more than anything. Because I realized she had been quietly building resentment. And instead of talking to me, her husband, she ran to some stranger who said the right thing at the right time. So you slept with him to feel alive? I asked coldly. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. That silence said everything. After that talk, I felt worse, not better. Like getting the full truth didn't help patch the wound, it just tore it wider. The more I heard, the more I saw how deliberate it all was. How she'd made choice after choice to get to that moment. And the thing that really haunted me? She didn't stop herself. Not even once. I started sleeping in the guest room full time. I told her I needed space, and that if we were going to move forward at all, it would take time, and a hell of a lot more than her cooking dinner and crying every night. She nodded like she understood, but there was always this look in her eyes. Like she was more afraid of losing the life than losing me. A few days later, I got a text from Bree. Bree, hey, can we talk? I stared at the message for a while before answering. Me? About what? Bree, I didn't know it would go that far. I'm sorry. I ended up meeting her for coffee. I didn't want to, but part of me needed to understand what kind of influence she really had over Jessica that night. Bree looked rough. No makeup, sunglasses on inside, like the guilt was physically wearing her down. I pushed her, she admitted. We were both drunk. I joked that she should have a little fun. That maybe she needed a reminder she was still attractive. I didn't think she'd actually do it. Why would you even suggest that to a married woman? I asked, holding back every urge to snap. She's been unhappy. She told me things were off between you two. I thought she needed to let loose. I never meant for it to turn into that. I stared at her for a long moment. Then said, You're not a friend. You're just chaos with a pretty face. I got up and left. That night, I told Jessica I was seeing a lawyer. Her face went white. But I had to know my options. Because something told me this wasn't just going to be about betrayal. It was going to get ugly, and fast. Seeing a lawyer wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting myself. I'd worked too hard for the life we built. I worked overtime to get us the down payment for the house. I paid off her student loans when she wanted to go back to school, and I kept everything afloat when COVID hit, and her hours got slashed. And now here I was, sleeping in a spare room because my wife couldn't say no to a bad decision and an even worse friend. The attorney I met with, a guy named Matthew Carter, came highly recommended. He was calm, direct, and didn't sugarcoat anything. I told him everything, about the cheating, the texts, even the conversation with Bree. He listened, took notes, and finally looked me straight in the eye. She cheated, yes. But that alone doesn't guarantee a favorable split. North Carolina's a no-fault state when it comes to divorce. We'll need more than just moral high ground. Like what? I asked. Financial leverage. Any attempt to hide assets, manipulate joint property, or act in bad faith could shift things in your favor. That's when something clicked. A few weeks before all this blew up, Jessica had asked me about refinancing the house. Said it might be smart to shift some things. Just in case. Rates rose again. At the time, I didn't think much of it. But now I wondered if she'd been thinking further ahead than I gave her credit for. I checked our financial docs. Sure enough, she'd recently pulled a comparative market analysis on the house behind my back, through Bree's real estate contacts. I confronted her that night. Why were you looking up our home value without telling me? Her face froze. I thought we might move. Get a fresh start. You thought that before you cheated? Silence again. I realized then, I wasn't dealing with someone who made one bad choice. I was dealing with someone who planned her escape, and just didn't expect to get caught first. From that moment on, everything changed. I stopped seeing Jessica as my wife and started seeing her for what she'd become, someone who was ready to throw me under the bus to save herself. The affair was bad enough, but the financial stuff? That hit different. It was cold. Calculated. I dug deeper. Opened up our joint bank statements, credit card accounts, even her Venmo history. That's when I saw it, 2 transfers to Bree, both under $2,000, spaced out over a couple weeks, right before the night she cheated. One was labeled, Girls Weekend Prep, the other Consulting. Consulting? I screenshotted everything and brought it to Matthew, my attorney. He raised an eyebrow. This could mean a lot of things. But it looks like she may have been quietly moving funds out of your joint account. We'll need to subpoena more records if you decide to move forward. At home, things were cold. Jessica kept trying, leaving me handwritten letters, wearing my favorite sweater, pretending she still knew how to be my wife. But I wasn't playing house anymore. I was documenting everything. Every conversation. Every bank transaction. Every misstep. She must have felt the shift, because a week later, she dropped a bomb on me. I think we need to sell the house, she said over dinner, her eating alone at the table, me standing in the doorway. Why now? I asked flatly. We both need to move on, Eric. Fresh starts. Clean slates. Translation, she wanted her half. And she thought I was dumb enough to hand it over, no questions asked. But I was ready. I already spoke to a lawyer, I said. She blinked. What? I know about the market analysis. I know about the money you sent to Bree. I know you were planning your exit before you even slept with that guy. She stared at me like I'd just slapped her. I'm not giving up this house, I said. And you're not taking what you didn't earn. Her face twisted with something ugly. Anger. Fear. Maybe both. And for the first time, I saw the real her, the version she tried to hide behind tears and apologies. The mask was off. Jessica didn't even try to deny it anymore. She knew I had her cornered, and the sweet, guilty wife act evaporated in seconds. You think you're some kind of victim? She snapped, standing up from the table. You ignored me for months, Eric. Always working, always tired. You barely even looked at me unless it was for sex or asking what's for dinner. I felt like a roommate. Not a wife. I just stared at her. Not because I was shocked by her words, but because I realized something deeper. She truly believed that justified everything. You felt neglected, so you screwed some stranger and tried to cash out our home? I asked, voice low. That's your logic? She crossed her arms. You weren't there for me. And you never said a damn thing until after you blew it all up. She turned away, biting her lip, like she was trying to stop herself from saying more. I walked past her and went upstairs without another word. The next few days were ice. No talking. No cooking. Just silence, and me preparing. I had the lawyer file for separation. In North Carolina, it's a required step before divorce, and I wanted that clock ticking. More importantly, I wanted documentation that I stayed in the home, that I had a legitimate claim to it, emotionally and financially. Jessica didn't take it well. She started lashing out. Passive-aggressive comments. Slamming doors. Texting mutual friends, spinning her own version of the story. I got wind that she was trying to paint me as controlling, even emotionally distant. One of my buddies, Dave, who'd known us both for years, called me and said, Man, she's rewriting history. Said you pushed her away? Said you didn't care anymore? I laughed bitterly. Yeah? Then why did she try to take the house with her on the way out? That shut him up. I wasn't just fighting betrayal now, I was fighting for my name, my rights, and my peace. And I wasn't backing down. By the time the paperwork was filed and the separation officially began, I was done playing defense. Jessica had made her choices, first when she slept with that guy, then again when she tried to manipulate our finances. Now it was my turn to make mine. My lawyer filed a motion to preserve joint property, including the house, and submitted evidence of her attempted financial maneuvering. We attached the screenshots of the Venmo transfers, the market analysis request, and the text she never bothered to delete. He also pushed to establish that I had remained in the home, and continued maintaining the mortgage alone during the separation. That mattered a lot. Jessica moved in with Bree for a while, which honestly said everything about where her head was at. I kept getting these messages from her, long ones at first, full of apologies and reflections, then angry ones when I didn't respond. Eventually, they turned desperate. One morning she texted, "We're both losing everything. Doesn't that matter to you?" No. It didn't. Not anymore. The court proceedings dragged on for months. She tried to fight for half of everything, including the house, even citing emotional distress. But her lawyer couldn't fight the mountain of evidence we had. The Venmo transfers looked like intentional movement of funds. The pre-cheating CMA made it clear she had been planning something. And once my lawyer had her affair and communications with that guy documented, it painted a full picture, not of a heartbroken wife, but of someone scheming her exit long before she made her move. In the end, I kept the house. She walked away with some of the savings, fair maybe, but I wasn't about to lose sleep over a few grand. When it was all over, I stood in the middle of the living room and just breathed. The silence felt different now. Not heavy. Not sad. Just mine. Max wagged his tail, nudging my leg. I crouched down, scratched his ears, and said, "We made it, buddy." It wasn't the ending I imagined when we said, "I do." But it was the one I earned. And I'd take truth over illusion any day.